Okay, next I want to look at how to embrace silence and retreat. And I know this is going to be a very odd conversation for many because some people equate retreat as, well, I'm just going to do anything to keep the peace and I'm going to be a doormat. And I'm just going to, shut down, flee? Well, that's not exactly what I mean by retreat. And when I say embracing silence, some people would say, oh, so I'm just supposed to keep my mouth shut and just take what's ever dished out to me. Not really referring to that either. So I'll explain this because this is going to be very uncomfortable for most of you to embrace silence and retreat. It almost sounds like the opposite of what some of you have been told to do. So we want to embrace silence, but I want to give you the particular flavor of silence that I'm referring to. The silence that I'm referring to is not merely the absence of sound. It's we would just say a significant pause that invites you to engage in some introspection and some thoughtful consideration. So let's imagine a situation in which a colleague criticizes your presentation in a meeting, for example. Your immediate instinct might be to defend yourself or to retaliate, perhaps a sharp remark. But by choosing to remain silent for a moment, you create an opportunity to breathe, an opportunity to reflect. You have an opportunity to process the feedback you've received instead of just jumping into a knee-jerk reaction. And this moment of quiet or silence will help you cultivate a space for deeper understanding rather than just reverting back to the hindbrain, the fight or flight response. This moment of silence allows you to differentiate between personal feelings and constructive criticism. This is especially important for the ASD individuals out there who can download even neutral comments as criticism. So if you use this business of utilizing silence effectively, you can allow your emotions to kind of settle instead of bubbling up. Does that make sense? And this can be especially helpful in high stress environments where feelings run high. For example, in an argument with your spouse. So we're talking about this little space, the space created by silence. I'm not going to say or do anything. I'm just going to pause and reflect. It's going to help you avoid statements made in anger that might not reflect your true thoughts. It's going to provide room for rational thought. It's going to help you to prevent misunderstandings that could escalate into conflicts. It's going to keep you in the prefrontal cortex instead of the reptilian brain. It'll help keep you in parasympathetic mode rather than sympathetic mode. Additionally, in moments of tension, your silence can project an aura of composure and strength, which can signal the other party that you're in control of your emotions and responses and you're not out for a fight. That's pretty damn important. So that's the business of silence. Let's dovetail off of that and look at retreat involves. Retreating from conflict does not equate to avoidance or hiding or running. Rather, it reveals a sophisticated emotional intelligence, quite honestly. It's just the emotionally smart thing to do when the old thing that you usually do is a knee-jerk reaction, saying and doing things that causes a tornado. So let's consider a scenario of a disagreement with your spouse over a sensitive topic. So instead of diving into a dispute that may sever the relationship and continue to destroy trust and so on, you're choosing to step back. And choosing to step back will allow both parties the time needed to reflect on their feelings rather than acting on their cognitive distortions. And this retreat might involve saying something like, I need some time to think about this before we continue. Especially the ASD individuals can say, when there's social and emotional nuances involved, I need some processing time. I'm a slow processor. So let me think about what we just talked about and I'll come back to you. So by removing yourself momentarily from the argument in the form of retreat with a tactful departing script, you create an opportunity to analyze the situation from a distance. You can almost look at it as an objective third party. And this very strategic withdrawal is likely to lead to a more constructive dialogue when the discussion is revisited. In an ideal world, you'll find that emotions have cooled down and both of you are better prepared to engage in a cooperative, collaborative discussion where you're going to be focused on solutions rather than engaging in a battle of wills or attacking one another's personality. So there's the business of silence and retreat. Now let's look at some of the benefits of choosing silence and retreat, lest you think that is a bad strategy. The first benefit is enhanced emotional intelligence, especially for people on the autism spectrum. You want to cultivate some emotional intelligence because you're lacking in that department. So opting for silence cultivates an awareness of your own emotional landscape. By recognizing what triggers your reactions, you can approach conversations with a newfound level of mindfulness and empathy, we will say. The second benefit would be strengthened relationships. Thoughtful communication rather than impulsive rebuttal will foster a deeper connection. And speaking to the ASD spouses out there, your NT spouse wants deeper connection. She has complained long and hard that we don't have a deep emotional connection. So when your spouse sees that you're prioritizing understanding over winning an argument, they're more likely to reciprocate with this level of respect, and that's a win-win. The third benefit would be effective conflict resolution. When you step away from a brewing conflict rather than fuel the fire with impulsive remarks, you open the door to peaceful resolutions. You want that. That should be your primary goal, shooting for peace rather than conflict. And this approach can lower the temperature of discussions, makes it easier to navigate the complexities of your marriage, and will help you to stay again in the prefrontal cortex rather than the old brain, and in parasympathetic mode rather than the sympathetic mode. The prefrontal cortex is the rational logical part of the brain. The hind brain is the survival brain. The amygdala will pump out doses of cortisol and adrenaline, and now you're in the sympathetic nervous system, which is fight, flight, or freeze. The fourth benefit for silence and retreat is stress reduction and increased clarity. So when we choose to pause, that not only alleviates stress, but also sharpens problem-solving skills. And this now established sense of calm can lead to some significant solutions and problem solving that may not have been evident in the heat of the moment. So I'm not going to go into great detail about the actual strategies to cultivate silence and retreat, because there's plenty of information out there that you don't need me to be talking about. One strategy is mindfulness. We all know what that is. Another strategy to cultivate silence and retreat would be set boundaries for discussions. For example, you could say, let's take a short break and revisit this later. You would also want to prioritize quality over quantity. If you feel pressure to respond immediately, that can lead to more harm than good. So instead, take the time to consider what you genuinely want to communicate. And if you have to say to your spouse, hey, I need a little time to process this and I'll come back, that's fine. So we're shooting for quality, not quantity. Quality of conversation, not length of conversation. And the last strategy that I want to talk about to cultivate silence and retreat would to be embrace the power of the pause. Embrace the power of the pause. Recognize that silence doesn't need to be uncomfortable, so you're going to use the pause intentionally as a moment for reflection, and this can transform silence from a void to a space filled with positive insight. In other words, am I overreacting? If so, what fear is going on behind the curtain that's driving this overreaction? And what thought, perhaps distorted thought, did I have created this feeling of fear? So, embracing the deliberate choices of silence and retreat in moments of tension can and often does lead to really profound shifts in how we engage with ourselves and others. It's a huge game changer. Now, in society, we often prize immediacy, impulsivity, get her done, let's fix this now. No, we don't want to do that. The ability to pause and reflect is going to be a huge game changer for you. So by creating time and space for thoughtful consideration, reflection, what am I thinking, what am I feeling, what am I getting ready to say or do, you can evaluate your interactions, in this case with your spouse. Pause and do an evaluation. We want that. And by choosing silence and retreat, you not only safeguard the integrity of your conversations, but you also develop a more reflective and compassionate approach to your marriage. So don't be afraid to embrace silence and retreat. It's not a cop-out. It's not something that only weak people do. No, it's the thing that strong people do who have a significant and even high degree of emotional intelligence. Would you like to schedule a paid private coaching session? This will be in the form of a face-to-face Zoom call. Underneath any of my videos, you'll see this Calendly link. If you click on that link, It'll open up my calendar. You can pick the available days and times that works for your schedule. You'll get a follow-up email immediately after purchasing a session that will have the Zoom link that coincides with the day and time that you picked. I will get an email too that you scheduled a session, and I will be available on that exact day and time, and we will talk. I look forward to working with you. If you are in a neurodiverse marriage where one spouse is autistic and the other one is not, and you've been struggling for years and years, and you're kind of sick and tired of the routine, talk to me. Use me as your personal coach. I have groups, and I keep these groups small so that you can get a lot of one-on-one attention. I have 3 Q&A groups, one for ASD husbands, one for neurotypical wives, and I have a couples group where both spouses can attend. I also have 2 instructional groups, Cassandra Syndrome Recovery Group, to help you cultivate some strategies to recover from years of emotional deprivation, and the Men's Masterclass, in which we take a deep dive on developing social skills and emotional literacy in the context of the neurodiverse marriage. We meet 1 hour a week for 4 weeks. So how much longer are you willing to wait?